Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hello, how you doing? Haven't actually been in my little sit down spot for a while, so it feels good to be back, you know? Feels good to be back. We have a lot to talk about. Like, this is gonna be a two-part series. I'm gonna do this video and then the next one, obviously if it's 2 parts. You get what I'm trying to say here. So I really hope you stick around to see all the bits of information that will link together. It all makes sense, hopefully, at the end. Make sure you're subscribed with the notifications on because my next video will be the second part of this little glute thing that we're doing. So, notifications, turn them on, okay? I want to make this video as easy and as simple to follow as possible. We are going to be talking about way more like intermediate to advanced stuff. So if you are a complete beginner and you've never trained in the gym before and you have little to no experience, make sure you do a little bit of research first and then maybe come back to this video just so it's not too overwhelming for you and like confusing and just too much. We do have a lot to go through, so I'm not going to waste too much time with this intro. I hate how some people like literally take 10 minutes to do their intro, and I'm saying that while I'm still babbling on. So let's just jump into it. These are the topics we're going to cover extensively in the 2-part series. So we're covering progressive overload, volume, weight, intensity of exercises within progressive overload, how often you should change your routines, how much volume you should do for your glutes, the big question that everyone wants to know, deload weeks, recovery, progressive overload with volume progression. I'm covering frequency, how many times a week you should train your glutes, for how long, how many exercises, which all kind of revolves around volume as well. I'm covering compound versus isolation exercises, high rep versus low rep, what's the right amount of reps, things you should avoid for certain areas of the glutes and things you should do. A little bit over nutrition, losing fat and it fell, okay. And what could be negatively affecting your glute growth. So I do have a 24-week workout plan. I also have a beginner one too. So I highly recommend checking that out as well, which will be in the description box. Okay, let's start off with one of the most important factors of muscle growth, progressive overload. Now, this is very, very important, and I know so many people that don't really do this. Years ago, I didn't even know what this was. I definitely did not progressively overload in anything. As a quick definition, progressive overload is just progressing in your exercises, progressing in your weights, in your volume, whatever it is, your body needs to be progressing in some way. Because if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, your body just won't have a reason to change. Why should your body grow if you're not giving it a reason to grow? And it can just stay where it is comfortably and chill. You know, we don't want it to chill. We want it to freak out and grow. That's what we want. There are different ways you can progressively overload. Increase the resistance of your workouts. You can increase the repetitions that you're doing. You can increase the volume that you're doing. And you can increase the training frequency. Then lastly, you can also decrease the time in between your sets. So I'll always progress in both volume and weight and intensity. Intensity and weight do fall into like the same category, but there are different ways you can intensify your workouts without adding more weight. So for example, a way of intensifying the exercise without adding more weight or adding more volume is simply, let's say, holding at the top with a squeeze for 5 seconds and then continuing. You do need to make sure that you're challenging yourself and really pushing your limits in the gym, because if you just do the same exercises, the same volume, the same weight every single day for months, you won't really see that much progress after the first few weeks. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. However, the big but here, the big but on the screen, no pun intended, kind of, but yeah. So just to make this next point a little bit more clear, I do specifically mean changing your exercises too often. And I'm not talking about volume or weight or intensity here. I'm purely talking about changing up the exercises that you're doing and your overall workout routine way too often. Even though you should be increasing and you should be changing things around, Doing too much change is a bad thing. So changing everything way too often, way too much, I don't know what my hands are doing, but it is a bad thing. Plus also it's very, very, very difficult for you to track your progression when you're constantly changing exercises. If every single time you go for a leg day in the gym and you change your workouts around, that's going to be terrible, terrible for progressive overload, because you simply cannot track your weights and your progression if you're constantly changing up your routine. So you do need to make sure that you're tracking your weights, you're tracking your volume. I know this can be annoying. I use my app that I have for my workout guides because you can track the weight in there, the volume and everything is already there for you. However, if you don't want to do that, get up your notes on your phone and just write everything down. Write the exercises that you're doing, the volume that you're doing, the weight that you're doing, just everything. Because then you can make sure that the next time you go to the gym, you do those same exercises, but you're progressing in your weights, and you know that because you've written them down. So it is a really, really good way of making sure you are actually progressively overloading. Because without progressive overload, without pushing your muscles to some sort of like next limit, they ain't gonna change. They're gonna be chilling and they're not gonna want to do anything. But if at the end of this video you do have questions about things I've already said, please make sure to comment them down below and I will try and get back to as many people as possible. When it comes to volume, I really rely upon two different professors. One is Mike Israetel and the other is Bret Concreas. Mike Israetel is a professor at a university. Bret Concreas has his own glute gym in America. Like, they're both extremely experienced guys and know a lot about this topic. They've each published their own papers and research. They just are very advanced in this field. However, volume is very, very different for both of them. So they both have different outlooks on volume for the glutes and how much you should be doing, and they have different opinions on this topic. So I've taken parts of each studies and kind of combine them into how I train today. In relation to training style, I use more of Mike Israetel's ideas, and with Bret I take on a lot of the information around the exercises that he does. I think the exercises that he recommends are amazing for the glutes. So according to Mike Israetel's study, 16 sets of heavy compound work a week is your glutes maximum recoverable. So this basically means that your glutes, or most people's glutes, will not be able to recover from more than 16 sets of heavy compound work a week. So these are exercises like squats and deadlifts and lunges. However, this would include also training your quads and your hamstrings with also other compound exercises. For example, stiff leg deadlifts or a close stance squat, which will involve the glutes as well. So it's 16 sets of direct glute work on top of doing compound work for quads and hamstrings. Now, on the other hand, we have Bret, and Bret will do around 36 sets a week with his clients. However, that is not in any way, shape or form 36 sets of heavy compound lifts. He will do his compound lifts, however, there is a lot more light work going on, a lot of additional sort of body weight stuff, or very, very light work, very few reps, very high reps. Bret basically mixes it up a lot more, which allows him to do more volume, because the actual intensity and how much those exercises and that exact volume will be taxing on your body is completely different. I hope this is making sense. So he will train that way because he sees better results in that sense, whereas Mike likes to focus more on compound lifts, doesn't really do accessory glute work. This is a really, really, really in-depth topic to cover. Like, I could spend 5, 6, 7 videos just talking about volume alone. I'm trying to kind of summarize it as much as I can, while still trying to explain it to you guys. I will link all the articles you need down below. These articles will go into a lot more information on this topic than I have time to cover in this video. If you really, really, really just want to like dive into the deep end of this all, definitely check the articles down below. I have had chats with Bret He was kind enough to send me loads of voice notes on WhatsApp, really explaining his theories and explaining it more in depth as well. Brett basically follows this rule of thirds, so I'll pop this up on the screen so you can see what I'm on about. So that is the way that he will train his clients, whereas Mike, on the other hand, has a totally different way of doing things. So you may then be asking, what is exactly the right amount of volume to do? Like, what's the exact number? And to be honest, there isn't an exact number. It all comes down to what are those sets made out of? Are you doing compound work? Are you doing just solely isolation things? Are you doing very, very heavy things? Are you doing kind of relatively light? There's so many different factors that come into play when you're talking about volume and how much you should be doing. There is no exact correct answer for the number of exact sets you should be doing, because there are so many factors that will influence it and determine whether it's too much or too little. Going back now a little bit to Mike Israetel, I know I keep going back and forth between the two, but I just find it very, very important to see the different angles of this topic and see their different point of views, because it's always good to know more than just one point of view. Mike Israetel also covers your minimum effective volume. What this means is that this is the minimum you have to do to see any sort of glute gains, and the minimum effective volume that he suggests, which is basically like the bare minimum, is 0, because your glutes will indirectly grow from training your quads and your hamstrings with compound exercises. However, this doesn't exactly mean that you can just do 0 sets of glutes if you want to make them a priority. It just means that it is possible to grow your glutes without any direct glute work, which is a very, very interesting thing to know. Again, keep in mind that this is just solely compound work. Very, very different to what Brett does. It's just two very, very different ways of doing things, basically. And it's sort of up to you which way you think will suit you the best. There is no exact right way of doing this. There just isn't. I hate to like answer the question like that, but there really just isn't. It's about trial and error. It's about just what you prefer. Do you like training more? Do you like training less? Like, it comes down a lot to personal preference as well. I implement more of Brett's ideas of volume, so I do switch it up, do some lighter things, my compounds, and I do more volume than Mike Israetel suggests. If you really want to get like absolute maximum growth gloat, it's good to not only do compounds like Mike suggests, and do a little bit more of like isolation exercises and lighter exercises as well. But for example, if you hardly even have time to go to the gym and you're very, 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 very tight in your weeks, focusing more on the compound lifts will be more beneficial than doing like all the extra stuff. If you just simply don't have time to, that's what you should focus on and do a lot less volume. However, if you have more time to go to the gym, so maybe you train like 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 times a week if you do it from home, then you can implement something a little bit more similar to Brett's way of training, which is higher volume, but you're not taxing your body as much with purely compound exercises. I personally love going to the gym twice a week. I just feel like it's really nice to just sort of get it out of the way and not have to go every single day in for a glute session. Plus, I don't really think that too many accessory movements are necessary. I structure my workout program around 6 weeks each time, so I call it a 6-week mesocycle. So what I'll do is I'll start off on week 1, very, very light, very low volume. So throughout the weeks, I will increase my weights, my volume as well. My weekly volume will go up until the 5th week. And on that 5th week, I will reach my maximum recoverable volume. So the maximum I should be doing before you start running into injuries and complications, which we do not want to do. And that week will be a very intense week. I'll go full out and just really, really, really do the maximum I can do. And then on the 6th week, I have a deload. So you're basically just giving your body a massive rest. And this will allow you to recover and allow your muscles to just catch up with everything and give them a chance to just refresh and reset themselves and make sure that you're fully recovered before you start the mesocycle all over again. You can only progress until a certain point. You can't really keep progressing and progressing until you're literally waking up and doing like very, very heavy squats every other second of the day. I love training the way I do, and it's how I structured my 24-week program as well. So if you do want to join, the link will be down in the description. In part 2, I'll be covering more about frequency, different ways that you can train your glutes depending on how many times you want to go to the gym, how much time you have overall in the week. I will be going through the frequency aspect a lot more in detail in the second video. I'll also be covering what exercises you should be doing, what exercises I really like doing, and also comparing them to the volume, so how taxing is that exercise. I'll also be talking about targeting different areas of your glutes and how different areas will require different types of training, and then finally talking about calories and eating as well, all in the second part of this series. But I hope this was really helpful just to give you a understanding of volume and how much you should be doing compared to what exercises you're doing. But one last thing before I go, don't try and overanalyze it too much, because as long as you're in that range, you should be fine. If you do just like a few extra sets a week, that won't make you injure yourself. It's just if you're training with excessive volume for long periods of time. Don't worry too much about it. I know it's like kind of scary and kind of crazy, but just use it as like a basis rather than like an all-in-all how to exactly do something, because there is no exact way. There isn't. There just isn't. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was easy to understand and broken down in like a clear way. I really am trying to just make it as understandable as possible. But yeah, I will see you guys in part 2. Bye.